the older brother syndrome in the prodigal son. And again, here's an example of not being able to self-differentiate. What does he say to the father? You know, I have done this, I have done that, I have done that. And we need to allow people to function on the level of faith that they have, even if they only have a mustard seed faith. My biggest criticism of the Boston movement is that they believe in a new Christian with a senior partner, and you need to do this, and they're living beyond the faith that they have. And that's why it's like trying to walk on a tightrope with no net. There's a lot of fatalities in that. And so we have to be patient with people, let God work with them without us trying to either push them too soon or too hard, or for us to get the feeling of a sense of superiority because of that. Highlights. Every one of us have to be really cognizant and take care of spiritual health. One of the terms that John Vincent, the most spiritual thing an entire Christian can do is sleep. And when we get really tired, it affects us, impacts us in a lot of different ways. In 2013, I did 2 sermons on Sunday, most of the time in class. A lot of times for Wednesday night class, and we had a Thursday morning class. And I had 35 funerals in 1 year. So think about this. If you preach 2 sermons on Sunday, and you have a funeral on Monday morning, Friday morning, you have Wednesday night class, Thursday class, and a funeral on Friday. You're just absolutely exhausted. Literally went home, and thankfully the funeral was in the morning. Literally went home on Wednesday and went to bed at noon. Because I've done 2 sermons, got 1 funeral down, and then I got Wednesday morning, I got rid of Wednesday night, we have a Thursday morning class, I have a Friday morning funeral, then I have 2 sermons to do on Sunday. I put some songbooks over here, and I call it the songbook equation. And if you can see on the right-hand side, and just for an example, I have 4 on one side. That's my description of these are the spiritual units going out. And it doesn't have to be due to funerals. We've all been in situations where we've just been called on for a lot of different situations. It can be our family, it can be work, it can be things in church. But I'm very conscious of this. If I'm in a context where I have 4 units going out, and I've only got 2 units coming in, what happens if I stay in that equation? Overdrawn? What else? Burnout. Just a whole list of predictable things start happening. And I either have to reduce what's going out on the other side, or I have to work to get some more things in, or I'm spiritually out of balance. I know that's very simplistic, but that I function with that a lot. Just, you know, if I take your blood pressure, whatever you think, how many spiritual units have been going out in this particular context? How many units am I getting in? So that means it's a critical thing to look at. We said this always work to be a good household manager, because if we work well with our house, that just touches on a whole group of other things. Jesus learned obedience through what he suffered. And in the very middle, any of us that work with people, Proverbs 18:17 is one of the most important verses in working with church and also at work. He who states his case first seems right, until the other comes and examines him. I'm trying to be gracious when I say this, but twice I've had women come forward on behalf of their husbands. one thing to say, please pray for my husband. It's another thing to say, I want to make sure the church knows that I'm a victim, so I'm trying to get my story out first. Can I go back to triangle again? If I'm taking people's comments during the invitation, I'm only going to deal with that particular person, and I'm not going to be drawn into other things, either to say much about or to deal with, because people are always trying to get people on their side, and just mark that one down. He who states his first case seems right until the other comes to examine it. The first guy I worked with, he said, son, when you go to a new church, the first people to butter you up will be the first people to fry you. And there are some people who always come and try, there's either a grudge, something's been going on, and Todd used the comment, why is this person talking with me? And that's why this thing with triangles has really, really been helpful, because I try to be very specific and deal with people face to face, and you go out and talk to that person, not get involved in the triangle from there. Sometimes in dealing with difficult people, we deal with it within a group. For 10 years, I worked with an elder that had the worst bedside manner of any elder I've ever worked with. We had Sunday afternoon elders meetings. And every Sunday evening when I sat down, the first thing my wife said is, do we still have a job? He had permanent male EMS. And the volcano didn't blow for 2 weeks, it was going to get worse. I was able to stay because the other men were able to kind of shield me and protect me. Again, sometimes dealing with a difficult person, if there's a consensus of enough stable or good people, we can deal with that. There are some situations we need to remove ourselves from because of the toxic environment. And everyone will have to make that call. But that's really important. Howard Norton, and this is hard to say, Howard said, we all want to serve, we all want to be servants, but none of us should be doormats. Understand what he's trying to say? We all want to serve, we all want to be servants, but we don't want to be stepped on and used by other people just because we are willing to serve. And again, there's that fine line of discretion. Don't get isolated and try to do things all by yourself. What did Moses' father-in-law tell him? This is not good. And especially as leaders, every time we can point and help someone else to do something, and our elders have been great at this. Anybody that comes and says, we'd like to do A, B, C, or D, they check with it, and 9 times out of 10, you go for it. And rather than it always come from the elders become the facilitators, the encouragers, the helpers, but the majority of the action and activities come from members themselves. It's really good to have some things in our lives that end. I had a friend that worked on a 10-year pain research project, and they said, you should always have hobbies that begin and end, that don't go forever and ever, because that helps you deal with long-term things. And in listening to that, I'm thinking in terms of ministry, a lot of the things that we're doing won't even happen during our lifetime. And so I have found, again, growing up on the farm, gardening, growing roses, doing some things that have a time frame are really helpful for us when we're dealing with long-term parameters. And commit ourselves to finishing and doing well in that regard. If you have the sheet on the elders, I just want to highlight a couple of things we touched on. If you look at the second page, I just did these verses. Elders are presbyters, bishops are overseers, shepherds are pastors. They're the same words, and you'll of personal responsibility, authority in religious matters. An overseer is both a guardian and someone who, and again we use the term, who helps provide things. If you look at the last page on the shepherds, historically, and I don't have a quibble with any of these, because all three of these are biblical names. If I'm talking in a general context, I generally refer to our elders as shepherds. Not down on any of them, but I always like to emphasize the importance of looking after people's souls and caring for them. And when you look at this term shepherd, again we're back with Jesus. The good shepherd lays down his life. I know my sheep, they know me. He gave apostles, prophets, pastors, shepherds, and teachers. Tend to the flock, care for it, shepherd, feed the flock, Acts 20:28. So I just want to highlight these and leave you to read most of these. And this is one of the articles that will give you the take home when you read. I always think of our elders and shepherds as the high tide mark of the church. If you go down to the coast, you can always tell where the high tide is on the piers. There's that salt crust. Very few churches are going to become more spiritual than their shepherds and elders. It will be the exception that a church is more spiritual than its leaders. And that's why developing and looking after our spirituality is so important. Two things to start with. I think of ministry as a service and not an office or a position of authority. I was with a man and his comment was, when I become elder, things are going to change around here. He also worked in security as a policeman, so that kind of gives you something of his mentality. I don't think of it as an office, I think of it as a service primarily. And I think of it as a partnership. I've had some great relationships with men that we've served with. And that's what's important. If we recognize it's the Lord's church, we are working together to do this. That's what's really important. So here's the highlights. I need you to read the details. When I think of elder, I think spirituality, the spiritual aspect, hold firm, give instruction, refute. Bishop, structural, that's the idea of managing, to oversee, to care for the church of God as God's stewards. And then when I think of shepherd, then I think of the security aspect, because the shepherds are to tend and to take care of the flock. In the late 1800s, my great-grandmother got married at 14 years and 9 months in Nebraska. And at 18, she had 3 little boys, 4 and under. And she got on a train to come to Indian Territory. He'd be on the next train in a boxcar, livestock, farm equipment, household stuff on the pallet. It was too late to build a house, and so they literally, about 2 miles east of Sayre, they dug out into the side of the hill. They killed one of their animals that was skinned for a door, and they spent the first winter in Indian Territory sleeping on a rock floor with 3 little boys, including my grandfather, who are 4 and under, and they have a skin for the door. Her father was a drummer boy in the Civil War. So we have oral family history going all the way back to the mid-1800s. And all of our family have primarily been cattle farmers and just farmers. And in the 6th grade, my dad decided, we're going to buy some sheep. Nobody in our family had ever had sheep. We've always had cattle all these years. And they were always mine, and after Hotel Christian, they time they sold them. But what an education to start doing something that nobody in your family has ever done. An older man came and talked to us and said, there's two things you have to know. One, you have to be really careful about some things that they eat. Cows will eat, won't matter, sheep will just bloat and turn up and die. And number two, doesn't matter, dog, coyote, bobcat, anything that tastes warm blood, you either will have to kill it or he will kill all of your sheep. There will be no compromise in that. So, through the years, we had 4 different kinds of sheep. And initially, we had some South Downs. These are really cute little bitty guys, not very long, but they also have a really flat back. And literally, if a South Down gets on his back, you have to help him. He'll kick and wiggle and everything else, and he can't turn himself over, and they'll die sometimes. You have to be really, really careful with them. And I think I've got one more. Isn't that adorable? South Downs are really good to have in, like, people growing grapes. Because they're so short, they can get up and reach the upper things, but they can eat the weeds on the bottom. And so some guys doing orchards will have, if they have any sheep at all, they won't have these real tall, lengthy Suffolks because they can actually get under the things. And so these little bitty guys are very useful in that area, and they're just a really pretty kind of sheep. Suffolks are totally different. I think they're half-goat. Much more independent, much more stronger will, and beautiful black legs, black feet. Little guys are just absolutely adorable, and I'll tell you about one of these here in a second. We also had Hampshires for a while. Hampshires are really good meat sheep, and compared to the Suffolks, these guys have a wholly different temperament. They're pretty calm, pretty even, and I love working with these. But my favorite, there's the Hampshires again. My favorite were the Dorsets. They sometimes will lamb twice a year, the others are primarily once, and just a fabulous, beautiful breed of sheep to work with. Paul called the elders to the church in Acts 20. Pay attention to yourselves and to all the flock. Good pastoral image. Which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers, bishops, to care for the church of God. After my departure, fierce wolves will come in, not sparing the flock. For among yourselves they will arise, speaking men, twisted things to draw things after them. Therefore be alert. What can an elder who has become a wolf do to a flock that an outsider can't do? Can we use our terms? He has the church record. He can do damage within a flock that an outsider can't do. Hopefully none of us will have to deal with this, but like I said, next to us, we had a congregation a few years ago. Finally came to the point that they asked 2 of their elders to step down, and it was just a very, very difficult thing to do. Here are just some things that happened while we had our sheep and I was at home. We didn't have any electricity down in our main barns. So one night we had a major sleet and snowstorm coming in. We actually lived in my great-grandmother's house that they built just before World War I. Solid wood. But we lined the wooden floor with newspaper, and we brought in 3 litters of baby pigs and 17 lambs into the living room. put encyclopedias, grower encyclopedias up on edge, and they would need to be fed at least once or twice a night. So you get the extended bucket, put the baby pigs in it, they get outside in the snow, they cuddle up, tickle mom, she lays down, you feed them, then you take 17 lambs out so they can have their evening meal. And then the baby pigs have all been fed, so then you go get the tub and you pick them up, bring them in, stack them like sausages on top of each other, and then you go out and catch 17 baby lambs to bring them in after they've had something to eat, so they don't freeze to death through the night. A shepherd knows that feeding the young is a matter of life and death. And one of the things, and again, we all can help with this, but one of my friends, our focus is at Seminole, and they've had 3 families that have just come totally out of the world. No background, no previous church experience, and it's been a wonderful thing that has just changed the teaching level and the fabric of the whole congregation to have 3 brand new families that they're tickled to be there. But shepherds know that feeding the young is a matter of life and death. I'm sound asleep one night. We have a crispy frost, snow on the ground, full moon, and I'm sound asleep, and I hear, bah, bah, and he's about 6 weeks, 2 weeks old. A lamb is across the creek. He's out here all by himself, and it's a full moon, and the first step I hear, crunch, crunch. I'm thinking this is not going to go well. Trying to catch a baby lamb on ice and snow on a full moon, and every step that you take crunches the snow. It took me 30 minutes to run him down to finally catch him. And I thought, well, buddy, you're going to help keep me warm. Please don't pee on the back of my neck. So I just got his feet, put them up around him, and on the journey back, and then let him keep me warm coming back. Shepherds look after their sheep. What's going to happen if you have a 6-week-old baby lamb on a full moon, bleeding at the top of his voice, with coyotes and bobcats around? He's not going to be there the next morning. And this isn't just an elder responsibility. All of us know people that are either going through things or struggling with things. They're not in a normal routine. And everything we can do to shepherd and to help is important. And let me go ahead and say it like this. Ideally, rather than someone becoming an elder and starting to do this for the first time, they have been doing these things as a member before they become an elder. Shepherding and looking after and caring along those ways. When we showed the suffix blackface, we called her Leaping Lena because she would jump on a fence over and over until she got a curve in it and she could get up. She was never happy. She wasn't happy at this fence, she wasn't happy with there, and her lambs were exactly the same way. I don't know if he had something else to do, but one day my dad backed a trailer up, put 1 sheep in it, and drove 2 hours to the stockyards in Oklahoma City to get rid of it. And they got there, and there was this panel about this big, and Dad said, she's a jumper. The guy says, oh, no, we're out in it. Well, she got out of the trailer, flat-footed the panel, and she starts heading toward the river. There, the guy said, do we get the horses? And Dad said, no, let her go. Bobcats, coyotes, I don't care. I'm not going to mess with this anymore. I have, of course, since I don't know you, none of you know the people involved, but I have elders said, we have lost more sleep over one member of this church than we have the rest of the church put together. Investing shepherding time with those who are willing to be led. If we're going through some type of transition or some type of crisis, here's something, and this can happen in a family. We can have a medical issue with one child, and we don't intentionally while we're taking after that one. And something that I think of because of this experience is that anytime we're going through a bit of a hiccup or something in a local church, I don't only want to spend all the time with the ones with the problem to the point that I neglect the care and looking after the ones who aren't dealing with that. Our whole operation was better when we finally got rid of that one sheep. At one point, the family referred back to the church family. There were 2 sisters, a brother-in-law, and 5 kids in their family. And something was done virtually every week from August to April to try to get our family to move, including breaking in and trashing our house. And finally, the elders called them in and said, "We feel like you have caused so much difficulty, so much trouble here. We feel like you should go and place membership at another church." Hopefully we don't have to do that. But this is what's important. Neither as the shepherds and as the bishops can we allow one person to so disrupt everything else that's going on that it disrupts the whole nature of the church and what's taking place. Hopefully we never have to do that. Remember the guy said, if they ever taste hot blood? I'm sound asleep one night and I hear this total uproar, and dogs have jumped in the south part of our fence, and there's 16 of them, and they're running the sheep along the side. They try to get him down, and they're just pulling his throat out. So they're just killing him random. I have a 12-gauge shotgun, a pump shotgun. I shoot and kill 8 dogs before they know I'm in the pen. They are so intent on killing my sheep that I completely reload a 12-gauge pump twice, and I kill 8 dogs before the others run off. We have to put some of them down. We have to go to the veterinarian. We have to sew some of them up, and all of them had a name. They'd all been, raised there, and for the next 3 weeks, I'm just traumatized, but always carried 22 with long rifle. And over the next 3 weeks, I killed 8 dogs who had come back. So that's how I know there were 16 of them. Moved up on Christian. Sheep have been sold. Sheila and I are home for the summer. I'm sound asleep upstairs. I hear some dogs barking, and I've got my boots on, my blue jeans, got the gun and the shells, and I'm outside the door to protect my sheep. And then I realized I don't have any sheep. That was such a traumatic experience that 5 years later, just being in the house and hearing dogs bark, I was so intent, I have to get out and protect my sheep. Hopefully it never comes to that serious thing. The guys that were the shepherds of the flock, God is calling us to do the best we can to protect the sheep that are in our flock.
Amen.
We had a situation where a family had been with us and left. There were some potential legal charges. That person wanted to come back and actually speak on midweek series. And as the shepherds talked about it, they said, well, we're going to gracefully decline because the sheep in our congregation that are here would be hurt by that person coming back. And I just said it in a positive way. Shepherds have a responsibility to feed, to protect, and to look after the sheep that are in their charge that they don't have to the church at large. Those are really important things for us to consider. If you turn the page, we'll just start with this and we'll finish up. The word's taken care of. Paul's word for the elder is what? the guy says, in taking care of the guy who's been beat up. Good Samaritan takes him to an inn and says, take care of him, is the same word for the elders, shepherds, taking care of the church. And we have a couple of books that working with sheep can just be smelly business. And sometimes things in the church can be very much the same way. And two of the books that are on the table talk about they smell like sheep. But here are the terms: protecting, feeding, watering, guiding, knowing. The church that we first worked with in Sydney had 110 members. We lived with my brother Ken, Charlie Val, Tony C. So we were 45 minutes, an hour away. A new family moved in, and within 2 years, a church of 110 people was 25. And we had 5 different meetings, lasted 4 or 5 hours. There'd be pools of tears on the floor. And within 24 hours, his wife would undo everything that we had done during that meeting. And again, hopefully by the grace of God, none of us deal with this. But that's why when I read that expression, be alert, take heed to yourselves, for from among yourselves will come, and here's the verse, grievous wolves who will not spare the flock. If as leaders, as shepherds, and as members, we're ever in a situation like that, the sooner we take action, the fewer fatalities there's going to be. And sometimes trying to compromise with the wolf simply means we're going to lose more sheep. And these things are hard to say because something I just wanted to mention. And hopefully, like I said, we won't deal with these. So let's look at the very bottom, then we'll stop and take lunch. When Jesus talks to Peter, after Peter's denied him 3 times, look at those 3 things. Feed my lambs, tend my sheep, feed my sheep. When Jesus talks to Saul on the road to Damascus, this always stands out to me. He doesn't say, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting the church? What does he say? Why are you persecuting me? And as far as the good shepherd is concerned, you persecute my church, you're persecuting me. And if you do the opposite of that, by loving, feeding, encouraging, and helping, one of the great ways that we show our love for Christ is in looking after the bride and caring for the church in every way that we can. So Jesus is referred to as the chief shepherd. And so we have elders, presbyters, shepherds, pastors that protect the flock through the oversight and the guiding of the bishops. One of the things we try to do in our family, and again, because we're the mission field a lot, we're traveling sometimes, but sometime on Saturday, the phrase would start in our house, tomorrow, Sunday, is the best day of the week. And one of the things that we try to cultivate in our kids all along is the anticipation tomorrow is the best day of the week because we get to be with our spiritual family. And that's why I wanted to have a devotional, something short with our kids. And since we do this every day in our family, but on Sunday, we get to do this with our spiritual family. So our middle daughter is going to go to Santiago, Spain for the summer. And well, let me take a step back. Anytime we're on vacation or a visit, I know you can stay in your room and do something. We always go find a local church. And in our family, we're going to get our spiritual family we've never met before. How many people can we meet? How many people can we encourage, and on and on? And I'm hugging my daughter goodbye at the airport. She's going to be gone for 2 months to South America. And as she hugs me goodbye, she says, Father, I get to go meet a part of our spiritual family I've never met before. And so that expression, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me, rings in my mind, and I'm always thinking, for me and my house, and those that I'm with, and even with our church, what can we do to strengthen, to encourage, to build up, to edify, and to help the church be stronger wherever we are? Over Memorial Day, we go to Deep South Texas, and we worship at the church at Port Isabel. And they're a church of about 30 people. When the snowbirds were there, there's 60. But Memorial Day, they've left. And they said, in the past, Memorial Day was the most depressing day of the weekend because we're 30 and half of us are gone. But the Hartman family started coming. So we walk in, David, you're leading Lord's Supper, yes, or Michael, you're leading the Lord's Prayer first, yes. Luke, you're leading, Mr. Hartman, you're leading singing tonight. Our pictures are up on the church directory board because whatever that church is doing that week, we're going to do. And they said when the snowbirds are here, we want to introduce them to a part of our church that you haven't met yet. And so we look after them in hurricanes. They look after us in tornadoes. And we have this wonderful relationship. But you think, I don't have to be an elder to shepherd. But the experience of shepherding and encouraging and nurturing that I have as a member should also help qualify and help me to be a more effective elder if God calls me actually to do that. Gentlemen, let's take a break.